Why is it that sometimes someone doesn't text you every day, doesn't constantly reach out, and might even disappear mid-conversation for a few days? And yet, out of nowhere, you find yourself thinking about them, replaying what they said, going back to your chat, reading the same lines again. Why are the people you can't let go of almost never the ones who are the most available, the most responsive, or the ones who are always there? Instead, they're the ones who stop halfway through a thought, end conversations mid-moment, and leave you with the feeling that something is still unfinished. And why is it that when someone texts you every day, replies instantly, and shares everything with you, you quickly get used to them? You stop expecting their messages, you stop thinking about them, and eventually, they just feel ordinary. If any of this feels familiar, there's something important you need to understand. What makes someone unforgettable is not how often they show up. It's this: when they're not there, do you still think about them? Today, we're not asking why you get attached. We're going deeper than that. We're breaking down one question: what are those unforgettable people doing differently? You probably believe that the more you show up, the more you'll be remembered. So you reply instantly. You keep conversations going. You add more, explain more, stay longer. You're trying to maintain connection. But here's the problem. The connection stays, but your impact fades. Think about a very real scenario. There are people in your messages every single day. Good morning. Good night. Memes, updates, random thoughts. At first, it feels warm, consistent, comforting. But over time, something shifts. You stop looking forward to their messages, their name pops up, and you feel nothing. Not because they did something wrong, but because they never left. Or maybe you've experienced the opposite, someone who kept texting you constantly, and slowly you started pulling away. You might have even thought, why are they always here? And eventually you stopped replying as much. Now compare that to a different kind of person, someone you only talked to for 10 minutes at a party. But right when the conversation got interesting, they smiled and said, "Let's continue this next time." Or someone who, in the middle of a great conversation, simply said, "I enjoyed this. Talk soon," and left. That's when something strange happens. The real impact doesn't happen when they're there. It happens after they're gone. You start replaying the moment, their tone, their expression, what they might have meant. You continue the conversation. But now it's happening in your head. Maybe in the shower, maybe late at night, maybe in a quiet moment when your mind drifts back. Because here's the truth. The brain doesn't process constant input, it processes interruption. Psychologically, your mind prioritizes two things above all: change and absence. When someone is always there, always responding, always available, your brain does something very efficient. It categorizes them as known. And once something is known, attention drops. That's why the more you say, the less they replay. The longer you stay, the less they remember. Because nothing ever stops, so nothing ever gets processed. Influence doesn't happen while you're present. It happens after you leave. Showing up constantly fills space. But what actually creates weight is this: when you're gone, does their mind keep going back to you? Most people have a habit they don't even notice. They try to finish everything. They explain their thoughts, add context, clarify their intentions, wrap things up neatly. They think this creates clarity. But psychologically, it does the opposite. Think of a moment you've definitely experienced. Someone tells you a story. They give you everything. What happened, how they felt, what it all means. You listen, you understand, you respond, and then it's over. A few minutes later, you've already moved on. But now, picture something different. You're texting someone. They stop halfway. Or a conversation builds momentum, and right when it starts to feel interesting, they say, "Let's continue this next time." No explanation, no closure. What happens next? You don't move on. You stay with it. You start filling in the gaps, replaying the last sentence, reanalyzing their tone, trying to figure out what they really meant. You continue the conversation. But now it's happening inside your head. maybe while you're driving, maybe late at night, scrolling your phone, and suddenly, that moment comes back. Not because it was important, but because it was never finished. In psychology, this is known as the Zeigarnik effect. The brain holds on to unfinished experiences far more strongly than completed ones. When something is complete, your mind closes the loop. But when something is left open, your mind keeps working. It replays, it analyzes, it reconstructs. And in that process, the person is no longer in front of you, but they start existing inside your mind. That's where attachment begins. What makes someone hard to forget is not what they fully said, but what they left unsaid. Completion creates understanding, but incompletion creates memory. Nothing lowers your perceived value faster than needing someone. The moment a person senses that you rely on their attention, their replies, or their presence to feel emotionally stable, the dynamic shifts. It's no longer a choice. It becomes dependence. And the human brain responds to dependence in a very predictable way. It lowers value. Think of a very real situation. You send a message, and then check your phone again and again, waiting, hoping they reply. When they take longer than expected, you send another message, or you start wondering, did I say something wrong? Your mood starts changing based on their response time. All of this feels normal, but what it signals is clear. Your emotional state is being controlled by them, and the moment that happens, they no longer need to invest, because you're already doing it for both of you. Now compare that to a different kind of person. They respond, but not urgently. They engage, but they don't revolve around you. They show interest, but they don't depend on your reaction. Their attention has direction. Their emotions have structure. You can feel the connection, but you can't fully define where you stand. And strangely, that doesn't create insecurity. It creates something deeper, a sense that they are complete. In psychology, people are naturally drawn to individuals who feel internally stable and self-contained. Because stability signals, they don't need to be fixed. Independence signals, they're not a burden. And when someone doesn't need you, something flips. Instead of them trying to keep you, you start wondering, where do I stand in their world? That question creates attention. That attention creates investment. And that investment creates attraction. This is the reversal most people never understand. Attraction doesn't come from chasing. It comes from not needing to, not from holding on, but from being someone who is already whole without anyone else. Obsession is never something you force. It doesn't come from more messages, more explanations, or more time spent together. It comes from something else, psychological space. When you're always present, you only occupy time. But when you step away, the mind finally starts to process you. When you explain everything, people understand you. But when you leave something unsaid, they return to you. When you depend on a connection, it becomes stable. But when you don't, it creates tension. And tension is what keeps attention alive. This isn't strategy. It's structure. The brain is not drawn to what is complete. It's drawn to what is unfinished, not to what is constant, but to what is interrupted, not to what is dependent, but to what is chosen. Once you understand this, you stop trying to maintain your presence. You stop filling every silence. You stop explaining everything. You stop chasing attention. Instead, you begin to choose when to show up, when to pause, when to leave something open, when to walk away. And in those moments, the ones where nothing seems to happen, your impact begins to grow. You no longer need to fight for attention, because when you leave, the other person's mind continues for you. That is the rarest position you can hold, not being constantly seen, but being impossible to forget, not being present, but still existing in someone else's mind. This is Felix. May you understand yourself a little deeper and treat the growing version of you with patience and kindness. See you next time.